My name is Adam Helm, and I'm a private chef based in Los Angeles. So when I was in high school, I was big into riding skateboards. So I wanted to be a professional skateboarder or possibly a stuntman. So my road to where I am today started with a dishwasher job 3 nights a week while I was in high school. I got that job from doing like construction cleanup with a friend of my mom's, and they saw me working hard and they offered me a job as a dishwasher. So I took that. By the end of high school, I was cooking, but not so much cooking, more some prep, setting plates, kind of working the line. And then right out of high school, I found out my ex-girlfriend was pregnant. So I figured I better get the hustle on. And I got a job as a line cook. And I did that for about a year. And then I figured I wasn't making enough money. So maybe I should go to culinary school. And then I'd be able to earn more money. So I went that route. I graduated culinary school. Turns out I wasn't really making any more money. It's a hard job and it doesn't honestly pay very well, especially when you're young and you're green and you're kind of coming up. But so I worked as a line cook in restaurants. I was living in San Francisco at the time. I moved up to Seattle. This was the second half of the 90s. And I worked in restaurants there. I worked in a hotel there. That's when I got my first sous chef job at 24. So I was now middle management at 24 years old in a hotel. A lot of long days, working probably 60, 70 hours a week and still not making a lot of money. So you really need to love to cook if this is the career you're going to choose. Anyhow, so yeah, more restaurants, more hotels. I started getting into catering. I got into movie and TV catering in New York for a while. And then I got my first executive chef job for a catering company. Did that for a while. And then when I finally moved out to Los Angeles, I worked in catering out here, where I was able to make more money per hour and work fewer days a week. So I had a better sort of work-life balance, which is really hard to maintain if you're working in restaurants and hotels. You pretty much just work all the time. And that job led to other connections, and those connections led me to more high-profile clients and doing some of my own catering and personal chef work. And that led me to where I am now as a private chef for an A-list celebrity. You don't need any accreditation for to be a chef. You can work your way up, from dishwasher prep cook and work up through the ranks. You're not really a chef until you obtain the title of chef. So even going to culinary school, you get a degree. So I graduated from the California Culinary Academy in San Francisco in 1992. I got an AOS in culinary arts. That did not make me a chef. What made me a chef was working my way up through the ranks until I obtained the title of chef. And I was now managing people, so managing staff and managing a kitchen. So you're doing ordering, purchasing, inventory, schedules, all that. And your staff call you chef. That's when you get to be a chef. And I've worked with chefs that went to culinary school. I've worked with phenomenal chefs who never went to culinary school. Really, by the time you graduate culinary school, you know a lot more of the language. Food safety and sanitation, cooking techniques. You learn a lot in culinary school, but it's the skill set that you develop on the job that gives you the ability to actually be a chef, to manage a kitchen. Day to day, my current position, I work 5 days a week. I work roughly a 9 or 10 hour day. I come in at 8 in the morning and I'm done like 5 or 6. I shop for groceries every day on my way in. So I stock the fridge, I stock the pantry, I make sure housekeepers have what they need as far as cleaning supplies, any of that stuff. So communication is really important. We're basically running a household. And I need to make sure I have everything that the principal may want, what guests may want. I get to know who the people are. I don't always know schedule. I don't always know who might show up. I've, been in the kitchen doing some prep, lining things up, and then all of a sudden there's a meeting is happening and there's 5 people and I got to feed people and run around and make espressos and all that kind of thing. So I basically need to be prepped out and ready for anything. And I need to know what different people's, tastes, preferences, likes, dislikes, all of that. I also travel. I've been all over the world with this client. And when we travel, we stay in nice hotels, obviously. They're used to having private chefs travel with, athletes and entertainers and all that. So the hotels are very accommodating. I'll shop locally and then cook and prep and execute meals out of the hotel kitchen. And if we're on site for a shoot or performance or whatever, I actually drag around a flight case that has induction burners. I've got mixing bowls. I've got some pots and pans. I've got latex gloves, Ziploc bags, oil, salt and pepper, seasonings. And I've got a Yeti cooler with whatever food I've shopped, prepped. So I can basically cook and feed my client on the fly anywhere. That's my day-to-day today. And that's challenging. But it's not boring. Now, as far as other positions, as an executive chef, I'm responsible for schedules, hiring, firing, prep lists. Maybe it depends on the size of the operation, whether it's corporate run, whether it's a hotel or a restaurant. The thing is, there's a lot of different things that you can do within the culinary arts. When I was in high school and washing dishes, I figured, okay, I'm a chef, I'm going to work in a restaurant. And that was kind of small thinking. But I didn't know enough, of the industry or the world to really understand how much more you can do. Like movie and TV catering in New York, we're basically in a taco truck setting up on the sidewalk wherever they're filming that day. And it's challenging and it's kind of fun because you're in a different setting, different environments, different challenges. It can be kind of boring showing up at the same building every day and working and kind of putting out the same menu and all that. But I worked restaurants and hotels pretty much all through my 20s and into my 30s. And that's where you really kind of cut your teeth on being organized and working clean, cleaning as you go, staying on top of things, being able to multitask. These are all skills that you need to develop before you can be called chef and before you can land a job like the one I have today. Also, the hard thing about being a private chef is no one will hire you unless you have previous private chef experience. So it's really hard to get that first job. So what I did a couple of tours for entertainers, music tours. And that led me to where I am today. So I was able to get this job because I rolled into it after tour. I worked as a private chef on tour. They liked me. They kept me on the team. Okay, so if you're new to culinary, or if this is an interest or even a passion, maybe you like to cook at home or you love watching cooking shows, and you think this might be for you, my suggestion would be get a job in a restaurant, because it's brutal. It's hard work. It's hot. It can be dangerous. Floors are slippery. You're dealing with knives and fire. People, you're going to cut yourself. You're going to burn yourself. That's just part of the job. And it doesn't pay very well, especially when you're starting out. So you have to do this because you want to do this, because you love to do this, and because you want to challenge yourself and learn and grow and ultimately become a chef. But do not be fooled that, oh, I'm just going to get out of high school and go to culinary school and then I'll be a chef, because you're not. You're just someone out of high school with a culinary degree. You'll be another, 20-year-old, 2-year-old with an AOS in culinary arts, which doesn't really mean anything. The culinary degree helps with corporate jobs, hotel jobs. They like to see a culinary degree, but they also want to see who else you've worked for. They want to see how long you've been working and how well you hold down a job. People move around a lot in this industry. So if you can show some longevity, like you stuck it out at a restaurant for more than 2 years, they're going to think, okay, he's not just going to bail on us. You don't want to burn any bridges ever. It doesn't matter if you choose to work in kitchens or anywhere else. Don't burn your bridges. Keep building bridges, make connections. You can, if maybe culinary isn't your passion, but animals are, then go volunteer at a shelter. Go volunteer at a veterinarian, sweeping up. Get to know these people and spend time with them and see what the job looks like. So if you're interested in culinary, I say get a job in a restaurant and see if you even like it. And if the work is, if it's too hot, too demanding, too stressful, it can be very stressful. Then stick to cooking at home and loving cooking shows. You don't have to go into the culinary arts just because you love to cook. You can still cook at home for your family, your friends, your loved ones. You can still be passionate about food. But if you want a career in culinary arts, get ready to bust for like 30 years before it pays off. Because that was my story. My mother and I were joking when I finally got this position, which is honestly a dream job. And I work for a great guy. We have an amazing team. I get to travel the world and I get to feed people. I'm not managing anybody else's schedule. I basically manage myself. And that's a great deal for me because I just want to feed people. I also do a lot of dishes. So I'm washing my own pots and pans. I don't have anybody cleaning up after me. But yeah, so my mother and I were joking that it was an overnight success, 30 years in the making. I'm 52 years old. I've been working for this client for 5 years, and I started washing dishes when I was 16. I was a sous chef by 24, middle management from 24 until about 32. And then I was an executive chef, chef de cuisine for restaurants. So even though I went to culinary school and graduated when I was 21 years old, I wasn't really carrying the title of chef until I was in my mid-20s. And that was as a sous chef, so I was still middle management. And I wasn't an executive chef until I was probably 32. Okay, best and worst part of my current job. Best part is I get to feed people. You know, I show up, I get to manage my own space. It's in someone else's home. I'm very respectful of that. Part of my job is to be attentive and unobtrusive. So, because I'm in someone's home. So you're not cutting into other people's conversations. You're not, like, I can hear, but I'm not listening. If somebody says they want a coffee, I'm already making it. So you need to kind of look ahead. It's tricky and it's not for everyone. Before I landed a private chef gig, I was working catering in LA, and, we worked for a lot of celebrity parties, things like that. We see celebrities all the time. There's a way you have to kind of interact with them without, you're not asking for an autograph. You're not trying to take selfies with them, right? They're at a party, they're enjoying themselves. So you have to kind of toe a line there, and that can be tricky. I also have to deal with a lot of different personalities. Some are easier to get along with than others. Some are a little more demanding than others. And that can certainly be challenging. But it's kind of fun to figure that out. And then to be prepared for these, like getting to know people to the level that you know what their favorite whatever is. So if they're going to be around, you make sure you have that. It might be a beverage in the fridge. It might be something you make that they loved before. It's kind of getting to know your people, and then you're kind of more like a family. So I get that. here in my current job, like we take care of each other and our team takes care of the boss. So I support the team, whether I'm feeding bodyguards or assistants or whoever, I take care of them because they take care of him. And that's kind of a good feeling. Also, travel is cool. I get to travel. I get to stay in nice hotels. That's pretty awesome. I'm backstage at, huge venues. I get, all access passes. I'm kind of a big shot. But I'm also just here to be of service. So, worst part is, the most challenging part is sometimes I don't know the schedule. Communication can break down anywhere. And a lot of things change last minute. So the most frustrating part for me is when something, it sort of shakes my flow, right? Like if I've kind of got my routine and I'll get knocked out of that. If I'm not expecting somebody and then people show up, obviously I'm not exactly prepared for that. So now I got to shift gears. I got to get ready. I got to stop what I'm doing. I got to do something else. That frustrates me. It's because it's challenging and because it knocks me out of my groove. And that I think is the frustrating part, because then I feel like I can't execute as well as I could if I had been given this information ahead of time. So that and, personality conflicts. Like I said, we're like family. Brothers and sisters are going to fight. Brothers are going to wrestle and hate each other some days. So that kind of goes on here. So you have to kind of learn where to engage and where to disengage. You need to learn how to stay in your lane sometimes. You also need to learn how to support other people on the team when it's appropriate. So it's tricky. And probably the hardest thing about this job, though, is being on tour for 3 or more months and working every single day and not seeing my family for 3 months at a time. So that's certainly difficult. So field outlook, and I even thought of this when I went to culinary school. I took the culinary school route because, as I mentioned earlier, I became a father at 19 years old. And I felt like I had to kickstart my career in a bigger way. So I went to culinary school. And even then I thought, well, even if my life path takes me somewhere else, I'll still know how to cook. And that's a valuable skill, whether you're going to work professionally in kitchens or not, right? You need to feed yourself. You can feed your family, not a bad skill to have. But as far as like job security, people got to eat. And most people don't cook, or they don't cook for themselves. A lot of people are really intimidated by cooking. And so they're doing Uber Eats, or they're going out to eat every night of the week because they can't cook. As far as what I do now as a private chef, as long as there are wealthy individuals that can afford to hire a private chef, then there will be private chef jobs. But as far as having a cook job, there's always going to be jobs. It's just how much are they going to pay, or how demanding is it? And again, working your way up the ladder, the more experience you have and the better looking resume, or the bigger names, like I worked for so-and-so chef or whatever, those are going to make you more valuable. So if you're a nobody off the street and you graduated from, college, like community college culinary program or whatever, they don't know you from anybody. So that's only going to command so much value, or so much demand. When I graduated culinary school in San Francisco, that school pumped out grads every 2 months. So like they'd cycle in a new batch. And San Francisco was flooded with graduates from the California Culinary Academy. I was actually getting offered less money per hour than I was when I was fresh out of high school and had 2 jobs under my belt. Right out of high school, I was making $10 an hour as a line cook. And after culinary school, I was being offered $6 and $7 an hour in San Francisco as a line cook, because they didn't know me, and my degree didn't really mean that much because there were tons of us. So supply and demand, we weren't worth that much. It wasn't until I moved from San Francisco up to Seattle where my degree carried a little bit more weight because they weren't flooded with CCA grads. Also, some years back, cordon bleu schools started popping up everywhere. And I think this was after Food Network. Like when I was going to culinary school, there was no Food Network. That hadn't happened yet. There really were no celebrity chefs. There was like Emeril, who might show up on a late night talk show or something once in a while. There was Julia Child. You know, there were some cooking shows, but not, chefs did not have the celebrity status that they have in today's world. Yeah, I don't know. I think I kind of went off track there, but yeah, there will be jobs. If you can feed people and if you're willing to work hard, there will be jobs. So to show up and stand out, you got to be willing to learn. You need to keep your ego in check, because I've worked with kids right out of culinary school who think they're a chef. I know they're not, but they don't know that yet. So that's kind of a rude awakening. You have to keep your ego in check. Like I have a dream job, but I still just feed people. Now, working your way up through the ranks, you have to be eager to learn. You need to be willing to follow other people's direction, because if you're not the chef, then you're not making any decisions. You are following orders. In kitchens, there's what's called the brigade system. So, and it's developed from the military, Escoffier. There's a whole history. They'll teach you about that in culinary school. But if you're a line cook, you just do what you're told. I mean, it depends on the size of the establishment. Maybe if it's a privately owned restaurant, that you might have a bit more flexibility. If it's corporate run, you're following by the numbers. If it's a hotel, you're doing what the sous chef told you to do. You're putting out somebody else's menu. And even as an executive chef, for a catering company, the clients and the sales team are dictating what our menus are. I might propose new menus, things like that. And, we'll do tastings for clients and so there's a lot of room for creativity in that. But ultimately, I'm putting out somebody else's food until I'm an executive chef, and then I get to put out my own food. So you need to be willing to take orders. You need to be willing to put in long days. It's hot. You're on your feet. You got to keep a positive attitude and keep showing up. And you need to be willing to show up every day and do that. And if there's an opportunity to challenge yourself, you need to take it. You need to drive yourself to challenge yourself to grow, or you're not going to grow, and you're not going to impress anybody either. So the biggest piece is showing up, and showing up strong and doing it day after day after day. That's how you get noticed. That's how you impress people in this industry. The way I was able to roll like a private chef gig on a tour into a full-time private chef gig that I've now been at for 5 years, coming up on 6 years, is I showed up and I worked hard. And I did more than was asked of me. And because of that 30 years of previous experience, working as a line cook, sous chef, chef de cuisine, all those things up, through the line to get to executive chef, I work really clean. I work really organized. I have a good understanding of cooking techniques and foods and how to prepare things. Obviously, I know how to cook if I have a job like this. But a bigger piece to that is how well I fit with the principal and the team. because even if my food was amazing, but I gave off a weird vibe, or I was a slob, or, you know, I didn't clean up after myself or whatever, I wouldn't be here. So a lot of it has to do with the personality, keeping your ego in check, being able to read the different people in the household that you're taking care of, and being able to squash it when you're feeling frustrated or you're feeling agitated, or, you know, put in a difficult position or challenged in a way that feels unreasonable. You got to squash that. So, what's the word? Like staying cool under pressure and being able to hustle and make it happen anyhow. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. And that's how you get to come back tomorrow. Okay, so if I could go back in time and tell myself, you know, give myself a hint as far as career path. When I was in ninth grade, I didn't even know I, you know, was going to pursue this path. I did like to cook. My mother was a great cook. My grandmother was a great cook. And you know, that was always the happiest room in the house, right? Being in the kitchen with grandma and she's cooking or baking or whatever. So I knew that I liked it, but I didn't really consider it as a career. And I guess if I could tell my ninth grade self, like, stick with it, it'll pay off eventually. That and broaden your horizons. Like I mentioned earlier, when I started out as a dishwasher in a restaurant, I kind of figured if I'm a chef, I work in a restaurant. But there's a lot more that you can do. I've worked, like I worked movie and TV catering. I actually, a number of years ago, I had an opportunity to work as an educator in school food reform. So we were actually doing, we would go to different schools and do boot camps, basically, to teach cafeteria employees, mostly known as lunch ladies, but not all ladies, to cook from scratch. And so we were teaching them food safety and sanitation, time management, as well as knife skills and the whole deal. And that was really rewarding. And I was asked to go do that based on other connections and other experience that I had. So there's a lot that you can do in the culinary arts beyond, you know, busting your ass behind the line in a restaurant. And I didn't know that when I was young and when I was starting out. I just figured this is what I do now. Honestly, if you feel like you have a love for food and feeding people, then the culinary arts might be for you. But you should really get a job in a restaurant to see if you want to do that work. You might not want to bust for 30 years to get the payoff. You know, you might choose to go a completely different route, and you can still love cooking and food and feeding people. You don't have to do it as a career. But if you do choose it as a career, expect to bust your ass for quite a while before it starts to pay off at all. And make those connections and challenge yourself. As far as, I mean, there were some Facebook groups that I joined a number of years ago, like private chef groups that are private groups. And one of those actually kind of indirectly led to this job. And that was due to connections. So like I went and volunteered to do a mixer that these guys put on, and that got me rubbing elbows with other private chefs, even though I wasn't one yet. But I knew them through catering world. So you have to kind of put yourself in a place where you're going to come in contact with these people. If you're interested in working with animals, volunteer at a shelter. That'll put you next to people who work with animals. And then you can get to know how they got to where they are. And if you impress them with how hard you're willing to work and how compassionate you are for animals and other people and whatever, that's what's going to impress these people. And then when they know someone who's hiring, or maybe they themselves are hiring, they might give you a call. They might offer you that opportunity. So you have to kind of put yourself out there to create the opportunities. You can cruise, you can follow celebrity chefs on Insta or Facebook or whatever, for inspiration, to maybe play around with stuff at home if that's something you like to do, and challenge yourself in those ways. So, I mean, sky's the limit, I think, on that. You know, get cookbooks, follow people, watch cooking shows, whatever. But please know that cooking shows are not the reality. They're drama. And it can get pretty dramatic in a professional kitchen. And maybe that's why it makes such good TV. But they're working off the scripts and they're creating drama, for drama's sake. You want to try to avoid that, actually, in a professional kitchen. You want to run things as tight and clean and efficient as possible and put out the best product possible. You don't want all the drama. I've worked in kitchens where chefs are yelling and throwing stuff. I didn't stay very long. And I might have learned a lot under some of those chefs, but it was not a positive work environment. Those are kind of old school chefs. There probably aren't too many of them around anymore, although that's still kind of the mentality in other countries because they don't have the HR department that we have here in the States. But like if you were to go to, say, Europe and study, you might be working for some of those chefs. But yeah, get out there and challenge yourself. Make yourself available. Well, all right. Thank you, Partnership to Uplift Communities, Career Convos, for asking me to speak. It was an honor to be asked. I hope that some of the information I offered was helpful or valuable. It's a rocky road to get to where I am today. I'm beyond grateful for my current position and my job. And it's an honor to speak to young people who may have an interest in culinary arts, because I didn't have anybody telling me any of this stuff. I just had to kind of figure it out on my own. So yeah, if you love to cook and you love to feed people, then this might be the right route for you. But, stick your toe in the water and check it out. Don't just, sign up for culinary school. If anybody is considering culinary school, work a restaurant job first. And then if you still love it, then go to culinary school, or skip culinary school and just keep working for good chefs and good people and develop your skills and show up and work hard and keep your ego in check, because it's only going to get in the way.
Hello, PUC students. My name is Chef Trinidad Silva, and I am the department chair at Los Angeles Mission College Culinary Art Department, and I am a full-time professor of culinary arts. When I was in high school, I wanted to be in the arts because I felt that the arts brought more fulfillment and meaning to my life. And so I explored different sort of mediums. And I ultimately decided that I wanted not to be a starving artist, but to be an artist with access to a lot of good food. And so that's what I wanted to be when I was in high school. As an overview of my career journey, I started at a city college in Santa Barbara. So I went to Santa Barbara City College and got a degree in culinary arts. And that was the beginning of my career journey. I never looked back, and I've remained in culinary arts ever since. When I was in culinary school, I worked at a bakery, and I would work from 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. And then I'd go to school from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then back to the bakery to prep for the next day. So for a couple of years there, I lived and breathed and slept culinary arts. And it was a really good opportunity because by the time I left culinary school, I had a couple of years of industry experience and a culinary arts degree. And from there, I went to fine dining restaurants, private clubs, and hotels. And I worked my way up in the culinary arts industry until I was executive chef. And then I worked in fine dining kitchens for many, many years before I became a culinary arts instructor. And then I went to Le Cordon Bleu in Pasadena and became a instructor of patisserie and baking and culinary arts. I did that for over 10 years until I came to Los Angeles Mission College, the Culinary Art Institute, and I've been here since 2015 as a full-time chef professor. Required education and training for the position of professor of culinary arts is many years of industry experience plus a Bachelor of Arts degree in culinary arts or hospitality management. The daily work structure for being a chef varies depending on which niche in our industry that you choose. As a person running a fine dining kitchen, I found that I was working 16 to 18 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, or weeks and months at a time. And I loved it. There came a point where I became a chef instructor, after which my schedule changed dramatically. I find a typical day as a chef instructor, I'll roll into the kitchen early, maybe 6 a.m. And typically I'm done teaching by 2. And then there's committee meetings and advisory meetings and associated student organization club meetings, etc. And typically I'll be done by a relatively decent 5 or 6 p.m. Now, the thing about working in the kitchen is that time evaporates. And so if I'm working for 8 to 12 hours in the day goes by so quickly. And I find that it's a huge advantage because I've definitely worked in jobs that time dragged by. But when I'm in the kitchen baking or cooking, time just simply evaporates. Somebody new to the culinary arts industry can expect a high pressure situation that's very demanding. One thing that people don't sometimes get is the amount of athleticism that's necessary to be a chef. You're on your feet, you're walking around, you're running around, and you wind up exerting a lot of physical energy. It's not like what it looks like on television. It's hard work, but it's very fulfilling because at the end of the day, we take a raw agricultural product and we turn it into cuisine. Best part of working in a busy kitchen with other culinarians is the camaraderie and the lifelong friendships and the deep bonds that you create with the other people that are on the lines working with you. It's so much fun to work in a busy kitchen, high pressure, but at the end of the day, it's a whole lot of fun to talk with your friends about what went right, what went wrong. Some days you can do no wrong and everything works out perfect. Other days are very painful. It doesn't matter as long as the guest in the dining room is having a fine experience. When it comes to being a chef instructor, one of the things that bothered me working for the for profit schools was the corporate aspect, a lot of money making aspect to the education. That was the worst part for me. However, now that I work in public education, I've come full circle because I started out at a community college and now I teach at a community college. And I find that the students can get a world class culinary education for a very reasonable amount of money. Projected outlook for the culinary and hospitality industry is the sky's the limit. Here in Los Angeles, there is a lot of opportunity and more on the horizon with the Olympics coming. Los Angeles is a world class destination city. Folks from Europe come here for vacation. But there is just a great deal of opportunity for folks that want to explore a career in culinary arts and hospitality. An ideal candidate for a position in the kitchen is somebody with a positive mental attitude and a good work ethic. So, as a chef, I could teach anybody how to cook. What I cannot teach is attitude and work. So, if you were to show up with a good attitude and a good work ethic, you could basically write your own ticket and be very successful in the kitchen. If I could go back in time and talk to ninth grade Trinidad, I would say, don't worry about anything. I would say, find out what you love to do, get really good at it, and eventually people will pay you to do it. There's a great opportunity for anybody interested in pursuing an education in culinary arts at Los Angeles Mission College, the Culinary Arts Institute. We offer a degree in culinary arts. We offer a degree in restaurant management. We also offer certificates in professional baking.